Welcome to MOOC course on Public Financial Administration, and today we are going to talk about the topic resource mobilization in India. India is a federal polity. The Constitution of India, which was adopted and also came into force in 1950, provided for the federal form of government, but nowhere in the Constitution the word federation has been mentioned. And Article 1 of the Constitution says India, that is Bharat, is union of states. The constitutional experts define Constitution of India as a federal constitution with the unitary features. If you look into the unitary features of the Constitution and also the federal features of the Constitution, it has both unitary and federal features. For example, the unitary features are centralized bureaucracy, centralized judiciary, emergency provisions, very long list of subjects in concurrent list, residual power lies with the union government, centralized fiscal structure. And the federal features includes formation of states on the basis of language spoken by the people of the regions in India, and then division of legislative and fiscal powers between union and states, arrangements for sharing of fiscal resources by the union government and the states, then arrangements for interstate and union state redressal mechanism. And features of the Indian federalism is very unique. Particularly in nowhere in the world you find this kind of unique features as you find in Indian federalism. Indian Constitution basically federal with unitary features and no right to secede from the Indian Union, and consent of the state is not required for altering its boundaries by Parliament, no equality of state representation in the upper house of the Parliament, no division of public services, no dual system of courts, union control in normal times, and strong central bias. These are the features of the federal system. When you come to have this kind of a system, you need to have some financial, particularly the fiscal arrangement should be made. And this is normally we call it as a fiscal federalism. Federalism on the general side, and then when you divide this fiscal resources for the different layers, particularly federal government and the states, then you call it as a fiscal federalism. But if you look into the effort taken by the government in set-writing various issues that arose in the working of the Constitution between particularly the problems between center and the state, the financial relations, there are large number of committees and commissions were appointed. In 1948, the Against-Marchari Committee was appointed. The 1953 Godgill Committee was appointed. In 1969, Dr. P. Rajamanar Committee was appointed by the West Bengal government. Then J.K. Tavaraj Committee appointed by the Kerala government. And then Administrative Reforms Commission appointed in 1968 also went into the same question of central state financial relations. Then A.K. Chanda, K. Sandanam, D.T. Logwada, Tarlok Singh, then S.R. Maheshwari, all have contributed a lot. Particularly, they have done a lot of research work on this central state financial relations. Then recently, we have second Administrative Reforms Commission under the Veerappa Moily. In the nutshell, if you want to know about exactly the resource mobilization in India, there is a separate exclusive areas of taxation, taxing powers earmarked in the Constitution, which is being provided in the 7th schedule of the Constitution. In the 7th schedule of the Constitution, there are 3 lists are given. List 1, that is called union list, those subjects which are exclusively union government, and list 2, state list, which is exclusively those subjects, taxing powers, legislative areas, which is exclusively for the states, and concurrent list, that is list 3. And list 3, in concurrent list you have both this union government and states. But here the Constitution makes it point that when the union government ideas or policies will prevail over the state policy in the particularly in the concurrent list. For example, if you look into the revenues of the union, then you have the tax revenue. The union list consists of 12 items. They are all grouped in 3. One is the tax levied, collected and retained by the central government, that is customs duty, corporation tax and surcharge on income tax. Second is taxes levied, collected by the center but compulsorily distributed between the union and the states, taxes on income other than agriculture, Article 270. And then third type of taxes which have been levied, collected by the center, which may be distributed between union and the states. If a Parliament law provides union excise duties, excise on medicinal and toilet preparations, Article 272. The commercial operations, railways, posts and telegraphs, banking, manufacture of salt and opium, other commercial operations, lotteries and public enterprises, they all comes under the union government. Then the fees collected by the union on various transactions. Then loans, public debt, foreign loans, foreign grants, etc., which are all exclusively the area of union government. Then the financial resources of states, if you want to look into it, then tax revenues levied by the union but collected and appropriated by the states, like stamp duties and bills of exchange, checks, promissory notes, and then bills or lending, letters of the credit and policies of the insurance, and transfer of shares, debentures, proxies and receipts, and then excise duties on toilets and medicinal preparations containing alcohol as per the article 268. Then second is levied. Second type of taxes earmarked for the state is levied and collected by the union but assigned wholly to the states. It is as per the article 269. It is succession and estate duties, terminal taxes on passengers and goods carried by railway, sea, air, taxes on railway, fares and freights, etc. Then thirdly, directly raised by the states, that is land revenue, excise on liquor, opium and so on. All these types of taxes which we are going to look into the coming slides. Then fees collected by the state government for various purposes. Then commercial operations like fisheries, transport, public enterprises, etc. Then sovereign rights like revenue from property, forest and so on. Other fiscal matters which are basically comes under the purview of the government is those exemptions from taxation is grants in aid. Grants in aid is a kind of innovation in the Indian constitution. Whenever there is a need for, the union government felt there is a need for some financial assistance to be given to the states, then it can provide it to the grants in aid, particularly in the revenue side, revenue expenditures of the states. Then loans it can guarantee, then plan allocations. Now it is taken over by the NITI Aayog. Then financial emergency, article 360, where the President of India can declare financial emergency. That means banning certain type of activities which they may feel that it's all extravaganza. Then controlled by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, CAG. Then let us look into the taxes with the union jurisdiction. List 1. Entry number 82. Taxes on income other than agriculture income. Then all those agriculture income that is being exclusively the area of the state government. Then 83, entry number 83, duties of customs including export duties, which is basically exclusively for the union government, earmarked for the union government. And 84, duties of excise except on alcoholic liquors and narcotics, but including medicinal and toilet preparations containing alcohol. Then 85 is the corporation tax. Corporation tax is taxes imposed on capital gains of the companies which have been registered under the Companies Act 1956. Then entry 86, taxes on capital value of assets exclusive of agricultural land of the individuals. And 88, duties in respect of succession of property other than agricultural land. Entry 89, terminal taxes on goods and passengers earned by railway, sea and air, taxes on railway fares and freights. And then entry 90, taxes other than stamp duties on transaction on stock exchanges and future markets. Then 91, rates of stamp duty in respect of bills of exchange, checks, promissory notes, bills of lading, letters of credit, policies of the insurance, transfer of shares, debentures, proxies and receipts. 92 says taxes on sale or purchase of newspaper and on advertisement published therein. And then 92A, taxes on sale or purchase of goods other than newspapers with where such sale or purchase takes place in the course of interstate commerce. Wherever the interstate, that means any transaction that is taking place interstate, moving from one state to another state, then it automatically comes under the 92A. The 92B, taxes on consignment of goods, whether consignment is to person making it or to other person, where such consignment takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. And then 92C, taxes on services. That you know that Narasimham committee which was appointed by the government of India in 1991, which recommended for the taxes on services, because there is a large number of people who are providing services which is who are earning lump sum amount of money, incomes which are basically not accountable or coming under any accounts, like lawyers or other fees collected by various consultants. So these are all Narasimha Committee in 1991 recommended the service tax. So 92C is coming under the taxes on services. Then 97, any tax not mentioned in the list on list 3 of the 7th schedule. This is very important. This is called residuary powers. The 97, entry 97 in the list 1, which says residuary power. This is basically is a very important feature of Indian federal system, where the residuary power means suppose those items or those subjects which are not mentioned either in list 1 or list 2 or list 3, anything is going to come in future, it will be under the purview of the union government. So this is exclusive power given to or provided to the union government, which entails that union government is more powerful and more centralized. Then when you come to the state jurisdiction, that is list 2, then entry 45, which is land revenue. Particularly at the time of independence, land revenue constituted about 60% of the income of the government, revenue of the government. But later it is being now reduced to very minimum because of the development in various fields, particularly in service sector as well as in manufacturing sector. Then entry 46, taxes on agriculture income. This is a very big subject, which basically that agriculture income, which how it can be calculated, what are the problems and issues in the agriculture, calculating the agriculture income. Because the Indian agriculture is always facing the problem of natural calamities, and it is basically depend on nature. So that is where taxes on agriculture income is the most controversial subject, particularly in Indian taxation system. 47, duties in respect of succession of agricultural land. This is another very important area where you find a lot of disputes coming to the court, basically with regard to the duties, because the duties, when it is any agricultural land is being transferred from one generation to another generation, one person inherit the agricultural land, then there is a taxes duties being imposed by the state government under the entry 47. Then entry 48, estate duty in respect of agricultural land. That means agricultural land, many people may think that the estate duty is not there, but the duty is not. I think it's one of the ways that the state government is trying to mobilize. Entry 49, taxes on lands and buildings. Basically, it is the state government is the main source of income, where particularly in urban areas where that buildings are being cropping up everywhere. Suppose, for example, in the states like Tamil Nadu, you have 48% of the population living in urban areas, where that buildings are occupy major part of the land. So that is where you find taxes on this entry 49 coming to picture. Then entry 50, taxes on mineral rights. Suppose every state, the minerals are being located only in state jurisdiction. So when any central, of course, the minerals are being grouped into major minerals and minor minerals. But whenever central or union government is trying to extract these minerals from the particular location, then the state which is where the mineral deposits are there, that state has a right, particularly impose on the certain duties, or it has a right to collect some fees. That is called right for minerals. That comes under the entry 50, taxes on mineral rights subject to limitation imposed by Parliament by law relating to mineral development. Then entry number 51, duties on excise on alcoholic liquors. This is where most controversial subject in all the states today. But this is the only major source of income for the states, particularly from the financial point of view, because finance is lifeblood of the administration. This is the only source. Next to land revenue, duties on excise on alcohol, liquors and narcotics manufactured or produced in the state but not including medicinal and toilet preparations containing alcohol. Then entry 52, taxes on entry of goods into the local area for consumption, use of sale therein. So this is entry of goods that is normally called octroi. Octroi was actually abolished in many states, but a state has the right to impose again any times. Then entry 53, taxes on consumption or sale of electricity. This is a major income where that states are gaining ground here. Of course, the new power policy of 1992 made some changes in this consumption, where the bulk consumers can directly purchase electricity from the central grid, but now the states plays a very important role, state electricity boards, and all this comes under the entry 52. Entry 54, taxes on sale or purchase of goods other than newspapers subject to provision of entry 92 of list 1. Then entry 55, taxes on advertisements other than newspapers and advertisement broadcast by radio or television. Then entry 56, taxes on goods and passengers carried by road or inland waterways. Then 57, taxes on vehicles, that vehicle taxes being collected by the states, whether mechanically propelled or not, suitable for use on roads, including tram cars subject to the provision in the entry 35 of the list 3. Then 58, taxes on animals and boats. So even the animals, they have to pay the tax, and this there are various charges being imposed on various types of animals. Now of course nowadays most of the animals are not been taken to the task. So sometimes when animals are used carrying vehicles, so in that case state government has a right to impose tax, and under the entry 58 of the list 2. Then 59, tolls. Tolls means wherever the toll gates are there, very well, all these are basically comes under the entry 59. Then entry 60, which is taxes on profession, trade, callings and employment. This is a very important source of income for the state government, and this professional tax is being imposed now on various professions today. There are so many professions have been included in this ambit of this profession tax, that is under the entry 60 of the list 2. Then 61, capitation taxes. Then 62, taxes on luxuries, including taxes on entertainment. That is another source of income particularly for the local government, where most of the local governments are depending upon this theatre. Particularly if you watch movies in the theatre, then offer the charges imposed by the collected by the theatre is going as entertainment tax. Entertainments, amusements, betting, gambling and so on. Then entry 63, rates of stamp duty in respect of documents other than those specified in the provision list 1 with regard to rates of stamp duty. So if you look into the trends of taxes, both the center and states in crores, and also its percentage to the GDP, because it is very important that the state, the government should have the wherewithal to run the government, because if you look into the Indian system, particularly both the union and the state, they are solely depending on certain basic fundamental fees and fines, forfeitures and taxes, non-tax revenues, they are depending on that. But apart from it, then every time whenever there is a deficit in the budget, then they have to resort to taxation. But despite all this, from 1991 till 2006 and 7, there is some analogy is being made. You can see, if you compare this GDP, Indian GDP is supposed to be $4 to $5 trillion US dollars, and out of it, that 15% that in both center and state. Please imagine that one union government and 30 or 38 states put together, all these governments taxes worth is only 15% of GDP in 1991. It is, you can see that gradually it raises, this government resources are raised 15 to 14 again. There is a fluctuation again. You can see the lowest one in the 1998-99 where the 13.38% of GDP, and then you can see that the highest one is you can find in the 2006-7 where that 16.9% of GDP is being collected. If you look into the composition of the taxes, particularly because the taxes government collects is based on, there are two types of taxes. One is direct taxes and indirect taxes. The direct taxes means the taxes collected directly from the individuals, for example income tax and then property tax, those taxes which are directly collected from the individuals. And indirect taxes are the more, because indirect taxes are sale tax, commercial tax, today now at present is a GST, all these are indirectly collected, and these indirect taxes already being collected whenever you purchase any kind of a commodity from the market. So when direct taxes and indirect taxes are put together, we have seen the last slide that both the taxes constitute about this much GDP. But out of the total revenue of the government of both center and states, then how much is percentage of direct taxes, how much is indirect taxes. So if you look into that particular analogy, in 1991 the direct taxes is about 14% and indirect taxes contribute 86%. That means indirect taxes are being paid almost by every citizen. It is not being discriminated upon. Suppose income tax is only those people who are having income slab more than the particular level, then they will be charged a direct income tax. But whereas indirect taxes are imposed on every individual who is purchasing commodity from the market, and he is being charged this indirect taxes. So you can see there is an analogy by the experts that from 1970s onwards in India, there is an incidence of indirect taxes more in the taxation regime in India, because indirect taxes are easier to impose or levy, because direct taxes are very difficult to, politically very sensitive, because people, if you increase the direct taxes, naturally people will know that they face a burden. So that is why the indirect taxes constitute about collection or tax revenue of the government. You can see the trend in this direct taxes and indirect taxes in India from 1991 till 2006-7 for our analysis. You can see that it's all direct taxes changed from 14%, 16, 17, and slowly it increased to 30% in 2006-7, whereas the indirect taxes also reduced from 86, that is the major bulk of the tax revenue of the government is from the indirect taxation, then it is being reduced to 69%. So now it is the GST came about, you see that it will be more in normal things. What is their concluding remarks is that the Constitution of India provides for more centralized tax structure owing to historical and political reasons. The one thing is that Indian resource mobilization is basically, even though we say it's a federal polity, but it's a more centralized in nature. Centralized structure of taxation means that major chunk of the tax resources, or particularly the elastic tax resources, are earmarked for the union government. For example, the income tax, and then excise duty, customs duty, corporation tax. All these taxes are basically, whenever the economy grows, whenever the economy expands, whenever there is an increase in the personal income, whenever there is an increase in the economic activity in the country or in the economy, naturally it will automatically increase the revenues of the government of India. Whereas in the case of the resources provided to the, or exclusively to the state government, which is suppose sale tax, now it is also not there, but like liquors or other kinds of land revenue will not rise. You cannot raise land revenue unless and until there is a development in the particular area. Otherwise, land revenue, increasing land revenue is not possible except urban areas, and even it's not possible for the state government rates. So that is why more elastic sources of income is being given to, earmarked for the union government, and more inelastic sources of income have been earmarked for the states. And the other side is that the states have to bear the burden of providing more services. So if you look into the services and the tax resources, the union government is having provided with the more tax resources, whereas state government is provided with the more service responsibility. For example, policing, housing, and then health sector, agriculture, all these are more service oriented, more labor intensive, more you need a lot of investment in that. But whereas the state's resources, financial resources, are very, very limited, and that is why you find that there is an imbalance, mismatch between the tax resources that is given to the states and then state resources, responsibility given to the states by the Constitution. So the final point is that in sum, what you can understand is that the centralized feature of the Indian tax structure is one thing. Second thing is that the tax resources earmarked for the two layers of government is not uniform, or is not appropriate. That is why the reason is the states are facing a lot of financial and other difficulties, basically to fulfill their obligations. Next, a very important aspect of the Indian resource mobilization is that taxation system in India provided for more indirect way of influencing the behavior of citizens rather than influencing them directly. So basically, we have seen that the tax revenue of the government is only 15% or 20%. It's okay, but at the same time, Indian economy is not fully under the control of the government. it is being indicative. Basically, the government will indicate, the government will influence the citizens through taxes. For example, if they want to discourage consumption of certain items or certain activities or certain commodities, for example alcohol, they will impose more taxes on it. Suppose 100% taxes, 200% taxes. Basically, for the purpose is not to raise the income, but to discourage citizens to consume that particular item. Particularly, for example, customs duty is imposed on certain items if you are going to import it from abroad. Of course, whenever government want to encourage the consumption of those items who are manufactured in India, why you are import it from the outside or other country? So that is why to discourage this, government may resort to imposing higher taxation on certain items. So this is a way normally in a democratic country, including India. Then while Indian economy is dominated by informal sector, there is another very important feature in taxation system which you have to understand is resource mobilization is most of the people, particularly we have large number of people, but they are not coming under the taxation bracket. For example, we don't have any idea about the informal sector, how much money earning, what is the household income, what is the proper household income, and there are statistics with regard to poverty, there are statistics with regard to household income on various grounds, and it is very difficult for a large country like, particularly populous countries like India, to come to any kind of understanding of what is exactly the situation of poverty. Of course, today we don't have the various reports coming to say that India there is a poverty, there is something is there. But instead what we find is that we have the in pockets there are poverty, there are pockets of people who are among the richest, among the prosperity, there is a poverty bracket is there, poverty. That is basically because one reason is while Indian economy is dominated by informal sector, the formal application of fiscal rules on the citizen find a large gap in the expectation of state and the citizen alike. Because if you are expecting too much from the state, or if you are expecting something from the state, obligatory functions, naturally what happens, the way of approach is also there. Suppose there should be some adequate financial resources should be available to the states, so that the state in the sense what I am not talking about the states here, I am talking about the general Indian state or any state, Indian state for that matter, and there should be proper or adequate financial resources should be available, that should be with the state. Of course, the indirect way of influencing behavior through taxation system and all, that prompted for more of a various types of different kind of a counterproductive developments rather than giving us anything. So that should be something not increasing the taxation, but at the same time bringing people at least some kind of ambit, some kind of general universal provision in the things. We shall conclude the lesson. So we have the very elaborate system of taxation system provided in the 7th schedule of the Constitution, and we have 3 lists are being given, that is are very elaborate. At the same time, there are some problems particularly in this system that has to be set right. So for this purpose, the Constitution also gives a remedy by providing Article 280, providing this Finance Commission, which we are going to discuss in our next classes. Thank you.